Right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Recipe number 2 is also based on potatoes and is even easier than recipe number 1, hash browns, and begins in the same way. So you grate the potato. However, I should say it's better for this recipe, in my experience, to not to grate the potato by hand, depending what kind of grater you have, because these strands are quite small, quite short. You can't see it from, it's quite short. Whereas I find that with the food processor you get longer strands and it just seems to work better. So, but I can't find the blade for the food processor, so I've just done this by hand. So the next thing, so you could theoretically grate 2 potatoes and make half of them into hash brown and half of them into this, but that's a bit too much potato for one day. But you could do it on different days. This is probably healthier because there's no, it's not fried. So what I would say is pick up the potato. This is also a difference between hash browns and this. With hash browns you don't rinse off the starch because you want the thing to stick together in the pan and be one piece. With this you want them to be separate, so you do rinse it. If you don't rinse it, it becomes really slimy and really unpleasant. So, by the way, it's called potato silk, and it, when I lived in the north of China, it was my favourite dish at every meal. I think it's a specialty of the north of China. So you put it in the strainer, give it a rinse. Maybe you could even rinse it in a bowl. That might be better, because then you can see, like when you rinse rice, you can see the starch coming off because the water becomes clearer. So the next thing, you can do it in a saucepan, but I like to do everything in the frying pan, which is possible to do. Because the frying pan is easier to clean. So I've already boiled this water. So I've already boiled the water in the kettle to speed up the process of boiling. Put in the pan. Probably don't fill it too high, because then you don't want it to spill over the side. Then the next thing to do is bring the water to until it bubbles. And you don't, I think generally you don't salt the water, because you're going to cook it for such a small time, maybe even 1 minute. So it's really a very quick, super fast food, which is kind of healthy, no fat, nothing. And just for the sake of the speed of the video, I might just put this in here. While I'm waiting for this to boil, you might be wondering why I'm dressed as a vampire. The reason is there's a lovely young lady who lives in Bali called Ilu, with a slight H at the end, and she likes vampires. So I made this video to show her that vampires can also be vegetarian. They don't always have to do what vampires usually do. So vegetarian vampires exist, and this is the proof. So now this is boiling. Just dump this, don't dump it forcefully, dump it gently. And then put a timer. Hey Alexa, 1 minute timer.
1 minute. Starting now.
And just make sure it's submerged under the water. and then twiddle your thumbs. By the way, don't try this at home, this cake is highly flammable. Twiddle your thumbs, sharpen your teeth. So then when it finishes, all you do, use the same strainer you used to rinse it in, and yeah, I think you rinse it again, and I think that in French that's called blanching, and that's to stop it overcooking. You rinse it in cold water to stop it overcooking and becoming too mushy. Alexa, how's my timer?
There are less than 10 seconds left on your 1 minute timer.
Less than 10 seconds, so super fast. I'll just turn the water off now. Alexa, stop! Oh! So then just take it very carefully, drain. Cold water. So my understanding of the reason for cold water in cooking vegetables is that when you take it off the pan, it's still cooking in a sense because it's still hot. Then that's just it. And then you put it in the plate, and salt. And the best one I ever had was in a restaurant, and it used a little bit of sesame oil, but don't use too much because it gets bitter. And they had little green chili peppers sliced, so you can do that. And don't eat with your hand. Ooh, so good. Until the next time.